Okay, I think we're up and running now. We are recording. Mick Clohisey, thank you ever so much for joining me this morning to talk about your running career and your athlete reflections. But hopefully things are well with you.
Yeah, thanks very much for having me on. Delighted to have a little chat. Yeah, all's good with me. Training away, planning to hopefully run a marathon in Wrexham at the end of April. Hopefully it goes ahead. So yeah, I'm tipping away, like missing the races big time. Like a lot of people, it's just unfortunate that nothing's happening domestically. So it is what it is at the moment. But yeah, look, I'm in good shape. Everything else as well. So just looking forward to getting back racing because that's what I love to do, you know. So thankfully there's something on the agenda in Wrexham, somewhere different to go. I know you're from Hurton, but hopefully it's all systems go.
Yeah, well, you're certainly visible, and you know when you're out at the races, there's no doubt about Mick Clohisey when he's out there performing, standing out, and you know you're very much part of the fabric of Irish athletics over the years. And so just tell us a little bit about your development over the years as an athlete.
Yeah, so I suppose recent years of the roads has become my home, and I suppose the marathon's my main events that I love. But starting out, like a lot of athletes in Ireland over the like distance runners, endurance based athletes, I was a cross country runner. Would have started out in school, secondary school, running cross country. Played a lot of soccer, Gaelic football growing up as well. So I was combining the three sports. Eventually whittled down to just the soccer and the running in my later teens. I joined Raheny Shamrocks at that stage. Dick Hooper, a well-known Irish athlete, three-time Dublin Marathon winner, great coach as well. I suppose everybody's heard of Dick, and maybe the younger generations coming through, they might have heard his name, but they'll see him at all the races. So Dick took me under, and that was in my mid-teens. Now I was still playing a bit of soccer, doing okay across country. A very strong crop of athletes in Raheny at that time. So we were doing quite well at national cross countries and the underage events. We picked up a lot of medals. Schools as well, St. Paul's College where I went, we won the All-Ireland schools cross country. It was the first time the school had done it, so that was a big thing. And I was, I wasn't that special. I was maybe mid-pack, like I was maybe second or third man home on the team. It wasn't until my last year in school I started to make a bit more, progression. But I was still playing football, so the running I wasn't 100% at the running. I was mixing it up. I was soccer training some nights. I'd actually run up to soccer training and run home to get some of my runs in, that kind of thing. But it was when I left school, I think I played soccer for another year or so, but I knew that the running was calling me and I was getting stronger. The soccer probably suffered then because, it's different mechanics, different muscle use. So I won the national junior inter-counties in 2005. I suppose that was the big breakthrough. Stopped playing football then. I kind of knew that, I really wanted to give the running a shot. So from there on, I progressed nicely at that age, mostly cross country, made Irish teams each year at the Eurocross. They brought in the under 23 event based at that exact time that I came out of junior. So that was, it was a nice stepping stone. Progressed well, won a few under 23 titles, I think, on the track, 5K, and used to do well at, maybe like the track, maybe I didn't excel as much, but I was strong, but cross country was my main thing in them days, doing a few road races. And that led up to 2009. I made the senior cross country team, and it was in Dublin. The last time it was held in Dublin, in Santry, Eurocross. And that was, so I was progressing nicely up in them early years. We had a great group in Raheny as well to train with. Had some good athletes, and Vinnie Mulvey had come back from America, who, was a few years older, so he was good to have there as well in the group. And we had a few other guys, Sean Connolly, who, yourself, was back from America. And so, I was learning from these guys as well. And I was excelling well, and I was enjoying the running. And that led up to kind of my mid-20s.
Wow, yeah, that was a heck of an upbringing you had with a lot of talents by both sides of you. And
Yeah, absolutely.
I think you say you started at the age of 15, and you made your commitment probably in 2005. And what would you have been then? 18 or 19?
Yeah, I would have been just left school. Like I was committed before that, but I hadn't given up the soccer, so that was probably holding me back progressing to train 100%. So, but I kind of knew it was coming that I'd end football and concentrate solely on the running, and I was enjoying just um getting into it. And I suppose when I left school, I really put the head down and wanted to be a runner and make the breakthroughs.
Gotcha. And that probably leads quite nicely into when did you first realise that you could have been an international athlete and you could run for Ireland?
Um, I suppose that year I left school, and I would have my training started to progress, and I would have started doing well in a lot of races, especially on the country. And that inter-counties win back in 2005 as a junior. So I made the Euro cross country team then, and that I realised I'm right up there now with all these lads that a few years prior in schools and that I would have been a good bit behind them, but now I'd caught up and I was on the upward graph. So then I realised this is what I want to do. And I think in them early years, yeah, the cross country obviously was my main focus, but myself and Dick deep down knew that I probably would edge towards the marathon.
Right.
My strength lied there, and I did have a few years gap in my mid-20s where I took the foot off the gas about 10 years ago now or so, where I lost a bit of momentum, took a bit of a break from the serious side of things, so that stalled the marathon a bit. But as I said in a few interviews and things before, I think it actually stood to me. I came back more hungry to get going, and that led on to the marathon in 2015. So I was later going to the marathon than I probably would have originally, but maybe for longevity moving forward, it might be a good thing that
Gotcha.
that I took them a few years, and I've been non-stop ever since the last 10 years really, racing consistently.
And you've been working with Dick Cooper throughout your running career at Raheny.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like so Dick, he used to come into St. Paul's College to train us, and that's where the link with Raheny Shamrocks came about. There was another guy, Paddy Noonan, who's president of Raheny Shamrocks now. He was in St. Paul's as well. So there was the two of them who really influenced me getting involved with the club. And then Dick, yeah, all the way up. Dick has been there, he's coached me now. I suppose at this stage, I've learned a lot, and Dick's changing as a coach as well. But it's a two-way system now, so we run stuff by each other. But it's great to have Dick there all the way through, and he's always believed in me. And especially for the marathon-based stuff, like Dick was an incredible marathon runner, a great career. So there was no better man, and he's instilled, certain aspects of his coaching. I know I'm not coaching at a high level. I coach more, probably intermediate levels of runners, people new to running. But I see myself, some of the stuff he's taught me that is coming out, and from my own career, I suppose it's a work ethic mentality of training hard and keep believing in yourself, but not getting carried away when you have a good result. Dick wouldn't he'll say well done, but it's move on. There's no over the top kind of, what's the word, celebrations or that. So it's a good thing to have. It keeps you grounded as well. But he's been great to have all the way up.
Brilliant. And in terms of your actual training, particularly, I guess, in that 16, 17, 18 period, what kind of training processes or training focus have you developed, particularly in those junior years and the late junior years? I mean, you're in the nationals, so what kind of key processes get those results?
Yeah, it was like, look, it wasn't anything too. It was an old school probably approach. Like, it was Dick's training philosophy. I would have started increasing my mileage, obviously, as the years went up. But it was bread and butter, kind of 2 interval sessions a week and a longer run. And that was the stuff that got me, and the consistency, obviously, just through the years. As I said, when I stopped playing football, I was able to solely focus on running, and obviously my mileage increased then. You know, I'd be going out for double days, easy runs, and the likes of that, and I built my endurance up. But the interval sessions, it was all, I suppose, there was nothing too scientific about it. You know, compared to maybe nowadays, there's a lot more heart rate, lactic, all that kind of stuff. And I've never really used that approach. So it's to kind of learn how to run off feel. I suppose in them days as well, when I started out, we didn't have a Garmin watch or anything. So, you know, you're just off the stopwatch. So, you know, there were your bread and butter hill sessions, intervals on the track, cross country style sessions. And you just mix it up and keep it consistent through the year. We're lucky out in North Dublin, where I am here, that we have a lot of good locations to vary our training. Like we've Dollymount Beach, St. Anne's Park, Hout Hill, which is a staple of my training through the years for hill sessions and for long runs, and then up to the Phoenix Park as well for we've a very good cross country session up on the Magazine, Rolling Hills up there, that all the way through, especially for cross country we'd use, and it's always done the job, so to speak, as getting me into good shape. So yeah, like it was just a consistent training, nothing too fancy about it. You know, you can't kind of gloss up any more than what it is. You know, go out and do the work, and you know, it was enjoyable as well. And as I said, in them days we had a great group to train with. So early 20s, you know, you're having a good buzz, meeting up for training, and the sessions, they were competitive as well. So look, I know sometimes we maybe overdone it in sessions, but I think I always had a good balance of how to train and to race. I know there can be sometimes a thing where people might overdo it in training, and they leave their race in their session prior to that. So I always felt I got a good balance of how to manage that. But I was always competitive, even in training. You know, I knew how to work hard.
Right, gotcha. And you said, you know, part of your processes and progress that you made was when you started double days. What age or what period was it when you started your double days?
Looking back, I suppose in my early 20s, I would have been thrown in a few doubles on easy days, or I think before sessions on it could be a Wednesday evening, we'd have an interval session. So that morning I'd go out for an easy 5 or 6 miles. So all these little things added up. Or on a Saturday after a morning session, the Saturday evening, late afternoon, go out for a 5 mile shakeout or whatever. So these are all adding little bits of mileage, and you know, and then obviously when I moved up to marathon training, they became quite regular, doubling up. But I actually don't do it as much these days. I tend to get one run done in the day. I might double the very odd time, but just different things now. I actually prefer just running once a day, but there definitely is benefit in the double. And I always found, especially if I was doing an evening interval session, or whatever kind of session it was, that if I went out that morning and do 5 miles nice and easy, that I always felt better that evening and more ready for the session. And it also gave you that sense of, you know, especially straight up out of bed, it gave you a nice sense of, I don't know what the word is, but that you were putting the effort in, or that you had a run in already and you were going to run again. It gave you that I'm an athlete kind of feeling, you know, that you'd already been out early in the morning and you were going again. So, you know, had them extra.
Yeah, and in fairness, I mean, sometimes a lot of coaches and athletes, they sometimes forget that quite often as youngsters, you know, they're playing football or they're doing football training maybe at, you know, 4 o'clock in the evening, and they're going a training session later on the day, and that's actually double days. It's the football training sometimes, as you know, could be harder.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's different. Like when you're working different muscles, your stop start, your twisty turny, and I think growing up, has gone back to that, like the football. I think it was good to play a few sports when I was younger, and I developed that bit later. Look, it depends on the individual, but I think it's important for as a younger age, you know, let it happen naturally. There can be, like, running is a tough sport, and when you're quite young, it can be an individual sport as well. And I think it's good to have that team element when you're growing up, and for social, you know, and learning, and, you know, socially around teammates and all that, and it can stand to you further on down. And I suppose that's the great thing about cross country as well, that you have that team side of it. That's important if you're in it, especially in a club environment, and it can be great camaraderie. And it makes people work well together, you know, and put it in for each other.
Yeah, I often think on the cross country side, particularly on the team side, a lot of people forget it. Usually it's the third man and the fourth man more important than the first two, because they can
Absolutely, yeah.
a 10-second improvement, they could take 10 places, and that might double the points difference between you and the rivals.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's the great thing about, you know, cross country races, the excitement as well. You know, for people watching on the side, or, you know, clubs against clubs in the national championship, when the fourth man it comes down to, you know, and, you know, even the non-scorers can make a difference putting the places back for. So like there's always a lot at stake, you know.
Yeah, that's good point there. Non-scorers too. Thinking about training, I mean, the challenges of training. What parts of the training week do you find a challenge, and how do you overcome those difficult aspects of training?
Yeah, like, look, training can be, there's some days you're not feeling it. I suppose when I moved up into the marathon stuff as well, when you're doing higher mileage and you're tired, there are days that what I find, look, I love training and that's why I do it. But like everything, if you're doing it all the time, there's days where you're tired, you're not in the humor of it, and you don't want to go out, but you do, because that's what you have to do. And I know, even if I'm out and about, people might think, oh, there's Mick, he's loving it, he's flying along, but behind the glasses I might be like, oh geez, I just want this run to end. And they're generally, what I would find, are sometimes the easy days that I could find the biggest challenge. The slower runs where I'm tired, it could be the day after a hard long run or whatever it is, but I love the sessions, I love the hard days, because I get into that zone. But it's sometimes just covering the miles that could be the hardest challenge. I think that can be, I'd say, a lot of people might resonate with that, especially when you're training hard, that they're the days that can be the biggest challenge. But obviously you need to keep your mileage up to keep your base and your endurance and your conditioning. But look, they're not like, it's not no major challenge, so to speak, because, you know, it's what you love to do. But look, there are days where I just don't want to run, but you do it. But session wise and other elements of training, no, like, you know, I love it, and I've always, you know, loved the buzz of training, especially training hard and working hard. There's some sessions, I know there's one we have out in Hope, we call it the Corkscrew Hill session, and it's a bit of it's nearly more of it's a mental test as well for toughness. And we throw it in, no matter what. I've done it for cross country training, for marathon training. It's a long hill, it's about 1K or more in length, but first half is quite a gradual climb. So we stop halfway, so it's about 500 meters, take a minute recovery, and then you go again into the tougher corkscrew part, which is another 500 meters or so. But the lactic and the burn is fairly severe, and then we hit the top and you go back down to the bottom and do it 4 times. And that's the one session I always find that if I'm doing it the morning of it, I'm always a bit apprehensive, because I know the pain is coming, so to speak, but it's all, you know, superficial pain. But it actually makes every other session a luxury nearly, because when you have the corkscrew done, you're like, oh geez, if I'm on the track now or whatever I'm doing, it's going to seem easy compared to this. So that's the mental toughness it gives you. But that's the one session where sometimes I might be putting it off a bit, and it's out on a road as well sometimes, and it can be, you know, a few cars, so you have to concentrate. But it's a brilliant session for toughening you up.
Right, yeah, the long hills, I remember those back in the day. Yes.
Has to be done.
Indeed, yeah. And I think sometimes, I don't know about you, I used to enjoy, you know, feeling the lactate just oozing through the thighs and the quads, and thinking, oh, this is going to get me stronger, and I'm going to do the business off the strength of it.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's a very good point you make, and I know that feeling as well. And I've sometimes kind of, when you're in the middle of that, I know, especially doing that hill session, I kind of say, right, reverse this, flip this feeling on its head to a positive. You know, this pain, superficial, but it's, you know, and it's going to be temporary, but it's positive. And you know, you nearly work yourself through it, and instead of being negative and feeling tired, you have to flip it and try. And that's you know, the same in a race, in them feeling times. And you know, there's so much goes on upstairs in the mind that you want to, and that's where training is a great way to practice these things for when it does come to a race situation. Absolutely,
yeah, I absolutely agree.
Mm.
Yeah, you've been with Dick Cooper throughout your coaching career. What would you say are the positive aspects of the coaching you received, and particularly in those junior years? Because that's sometimes the bit that a lot of athletes and coaches that there's transitions there. But what would you say the positive aspects of your coach?
Yeah, well, see, I suppose Dick had been, he was a top athlete himself, and he was kind of I suppose when I was starting off, he wasn't long into coaching, so he was developing as a coach himself. But from the start, he instilled a belief that you could do well in the sport, that, this is what we did, we're runners, and you had this sense of great feeling that, we're distance runners, we're out there doing it. But like one of the main things that Dick would have installed was like a work ethic, that you have to work hard. Now, sometimes I might have overdone it when I was younger, and even in later years as well. And as a coach, Dick would have learned from individual athletes as well. Like Dick probably realised some of the training he did, his athletes couldn't replicate that, because we're all different. And Dick trained very hard, and as I said, we were all developing as he was developing as a coach as well. So, but it was a work ethic that was instilled, that consistency as well. There's so many positives from Dick, but he's a positive person, and that would carry over to his athletes. And as I said, there was he's hard taskmaster. You could say that, if things aren't going great, he's not going to be overly feeling sorry for you, so it's kind of, you have to learn to push on. And but look, there's some athletes that might suit, others it mightn't, but me and Dick worked well together. And when the successes started to come, Dick would, well done, and it's brilliant and stuff, but let's keep the show going. We don't need to parade around, you need to keep pushing on. And that's what kind of kept keeps it kind of focused and grounded. And he's always just good there to have on the side. And also my father plays a big influence as well, even up till now. Like he's been there, he ran marathons, now obviously not at the same level as Dick, but just for my own personal someone to talk to and to encourage me since I was a teen right up until now. I'm in my mid-30s. My father, even 2 days ago, was up to Phoenix Park. I'm doing a long run, he's on the bike handing me water drinks. So they're two big characters that have been massive for making me, keeping me going and to achieve what I have, and giving me the belief and confidence.
Yeah, and you need that to keep rolling, to piling in the miles. And I know you've talked once or twice, you're going to head to Wrexham and do the marathon. What do you know about the Wrexham course?
I don't know a whole lot at the moment, but I'm sure I'll look into it. Yeah, so Wrexham is happening at the end of April. Hopefully, they say they're doing their best, so fair play to them for trying to get it to happen. I think it's an elite race, a lapped course of 5K. I think, to be honest, it was just to have something on the agenda as well. It looks like it's the only option. It's not that far away anyway, so that's it's not that big a trip across the Irish Sea. So it'll be a closed off event. I think it's not a high, probably a second tier marathon. I don't think there's not really fast times who are planning to do it. I think I might be up there in the top few. So even I was talking to Dick about it. So it's an opportunity maybe just to get up there in a marathon and finish on the podium or whatever. Like, look, whatever the time is. I just want to get back on track and put in a good performance. I've had a few below par marathons last year, due to injury in Seville, and then London in October didn't go to plan at all. I wasn't at the races. So when you have a couple of bad performances, you want to get yourself back, because I know that I'm still progressing at the marathon with a lot more to give. So I know last year was a very messy year for everyone, race wise, and but look, I'm feeling good to push on and try and give Wrexham a crack if hopefully it happens. And it's just unfortunate, I suppose, that we've very little opportunities to race at the moment. It's the same for everyone, but domestically there's no opportunities for athletes really, and that's where I suppose you just have to keep the faith with the training and plug away.
Gotcha. And
But it's a hard situation now, and hopefully all this stuff will be finished up soon and things can get back.
I've got you. Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see how many of those carbon fibre shoes people are wearing, but it seems to be standard part of the apparel these days. I assume you have a pair too.
Yeah, I suppose I was actually a little bit later coming to them, and I think in Dublin Marathon 2018, when I won the national, I was still in the old flats, the proper flats, I suppose,
Flats.
Old style flats, and I'd heard about these shoes, but I wasn't paying much attention to them at the time. And I remember looking around in Dublin that year, and nearly everyone had them, and I didn't. So then, I suppose I said, look, I might as well give them a try if everyone has them. And yeah, I've been wearing, I suppose, the Nike 4% or Next Percent. They do help. I don't think they're magic in any ways. I mean, I've had some days in them, and if you're not feeling great, they don't magically help you get to the finish line. But what I find, I suppose, is they do have that bit of extra, bounce back, and they do save your legs. The high heel, I found out I had a little bit of a weakness in the Achilles, which is gone, thankfully. But I think the bit of support from them had helped. But then again, that Achilles strain came on in Seville wearing them shoes, so they may have caused. But I don't think so, because I've been wearing them for my training runs, and I've kind of gotten used to them. So it's probably actually be hard to go back to the old flats, because it becomes so used to them. But I think all the brands now have similar versions out. So I mean, it's just technology now. I think they did have to put a cap on them. I think they might have been getting a bit out of hand. But I sometimes feel like, they help, but I don't think they should take all the credit for everything that goes on. I think it might be at the really high level. I don't know whether it's a cover up for other stuff, like the shoes did this, the shoes, I don't know, like you'd wonder. But look, they do help, there's no doubt.
Yeah, and I think what I hear is people it's the recovery where they feel there's a big benefit as well.
Absolutely, yeah, and that's what I find. Like I have a few older pairs on the go for my long runs, and they do help with recovery from especially the calves and that. But they don't suit everyone. I notice there people, some of the people that I help out from a coaching level, and they find they tighten up wearing them. So they're not for everyone, but they are what they are. They're there now, and I think people have kind of accepted that they're part of the landscape.
Absolutely, yes.
Have you run any pairs yourself, or?
I've got a couple of pairs, but at my age, I'm not looking for speed. But we will see. Who knows? There could be a comeback.
Could be, yeah.
Yeah, I must admit, I enjoy shorter distance running more these days. So you're more likely to see me, rolling out over 150 meters rather than 1,500.
Bit of speed in the legs.
Yeah, for sure. What I mean, we've talked about a lot about training and things that you've done to develop. What do you do in your downtime? How does Mick Clohisey take a break?
Yeah, well, like thankfully I've a lot of other interests outside of running, and I think it's probably stood to me through the years. I'm able to switch off from running as much as I love it, and it's always there in the background, no matter what. But like I've loads of other interests. Like I have a keen interest in music, and that my dad's a musician, so I would have picked that up off him growing up. But I love the outdoors as well. Like it doesn't have to be running. I could be going for a swim in the sea, or just even walking. I have a 1.5-year-old son, Paul, now, so that's probably my main other activity apart from when I'm going running. So but yeah, like I like to switch off and read, and at latest times with my son Paul, he's grown up, he's starting to walk, so that's what I spend most of my energy is on that, and it's brilliant. And then when you want to train, you switch back in, and I think it's can be a good approach. Like over the years, you learn as you go. I've been on training camps, and they're very beneficial. And then in recent times, I've been happy to do my own kind of regime with running. Luckily I have a place, or access to a place in Portugal in the Algarve that I can use to train. And it's just been myself, my wife, Crona, and little Paul in recent years have come down, and I'm happy to train on my own and switch off when I need to, and then just do the training. So I suppose you learn that as you go. You maybe in the past, when you're younger, I suppose when you're coming up, running can become all consuming. But look, that's part of the learning aspect of it as well. But in recent times, I've learned to, do my training, switch off from it, and then know when to switch back on if I have a race or have another session to do. And I suppose you're saving mental energy in that way as well. But but it's an ongoing process. But thankfully, I've other things to keep me busy,
distracted and balanced. Yeah, absolutely.
And I've gotten into coaching in recent years as well, so that's been a great addition, and I love.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you about that. What is your, I know you're doing a bit of coaching, but how does that work?
Yeah, well, it's not at a high level or an elite level in any regard. So it's more just I suppose in recent years the running boom with park runs and everything. There's so many people running. So it's about 3.5 years ago or so I set up my own kind of coaching business, aiming at lunchtime kind of corporates in Dublin, and it's led on from there. I have my own local sessions in St. Anne's Park in Raheny with groups, do 3 or 4 sessions a week. Unfortunately, they've stopped at the moment, but hopefully in March we can get going again. And I had been doing corporates groups down in Irishtown with Mike and Susan McGovern. You probably know them from the Irish Milers Club. So I'd linked in with them as coaches, and we take some of the companies that are based down the docks in Dublin, and on their lunch break they'd have the access to the track for an interval session. So that was great. Unfortunately, that stopped for now. But my own personal groups has flourished the last few years. A lot of the gang would be in Raheny Shamrocks who come to my sessions, but it's not an official Raheny session. It's my own group, and they're all levels. So they could be from 20-minute 5K, a little bit quicker, to 30-minute 5K. So there's a mix of range of levels, and it's just it's not too intense, but it's they enjoy the training, and I do online coaching 1-to-1 as well. I've been putting out schedules of late because my group stuff has stopped. I've been able to keep people going with weekly sessions and stuff, and time trials and the likes. In fact, some of the virtual runs as well has kept little targets, because I suppose for that side of the sport, it's good to have all levels as well. But it's been great that they can have little targets where they can meet up with their friends or in small groups and do a time trial just to keep the focus, and hopefully when the races come back, everybody's at a good level of fitness.
Yeah, no, I can see that the challenges there, certainly in these COVID times. We're all feeling it.
Yeah, but hopefully the end is in sight.
Yeah. Just as a final question, are there any events in track and field or endurance that you wish you tried, or
I'd like to try?
Yeah.
Not the steeplechase anyway. I tried that when I was a junior, and it was, I think my coach Dick always has a good laugh when I bring that up. I could hardly manage getting over the barriers, but I think even more so now with the marathon stuff, my legs don't like to change their movements too much. But track and field, I suppose since I've moved up to the marathon, I suppose the shorter distance I've probably neglected them, which is it's hard to focus on a shorter, unless I wasn't in a marathon build-up. I've sometimes jumped into a 5K and the Morton Games a couple of times. One year it worked well, the other year it was a bit of a disaster because I was bang smack in the build-up to one of the championships. But I suppose I would have liked to maybe concentrate on my 5K a bit to try and get the time down, which I think if I was purely focusing on that, I would be able to work on getting the time down. But I suppose with marathon build-ups, when you take the break, you're on to the next one. So it can be hard to fit in. But yeah, I do like the track, and I suppose the 10,000 has become the event that I've ran over the years and in the nationals each year. So I love the 10,000 on the track. But I suppose the 3K and the 5K were events that I haven't given much time in recent years.
Gotcha. No, I was just wondering whether in 5 years' time we might see you doing a 50K or a 100K.
We're going down that route. We'll see. I think the marathon is long enough at the moment, but you never know, the 50K one. But I'm happy enough with the 26.2 for now.
And you're doing great at it, and congratulations on what you've done, and good luck with what you've got coming up in the future. Certainly in North Wales at Wrexham. So
yeah, exotic Wrexham.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks ever so much for sharing your reflections.
Yeah, thanks very much for having me on.
Brilliant. Thanks, Mick.
Good stuff.